Businesses will incur costs from time to time. In cost accounting, costs are classified into different categories to make them more meaningful for internal management and costing purposes. Some of the more important categories include whether the cost is fixed or variable, whether the cost is a product or period cost, and whether the cost is a direct or indirect cost. First up is the cost fixed or variable. A cost is fixed if it does not change regardless of units produced. Some examples include rent and depreciation. A cost is variable if it changes proportionately with the units produced. Some examples include the salesman's commission and the cost of raw materials used in the production process. Then we have something called mixed costs. And as you might have inferred, mixed costs are costs that is both a fixed and variable cost. Meaning to say, as 0 units produced, you will incur some costs, and as the unit of production increase, the cost increase proportionately. One good example is utilities, especially for businesses selling dishes with hot soup. If the business has no customer for the day, it still needs to heat the soup and incur some utilities. And if the business had a busy day, it will incur more utilities expense to prepare the dishes for their customer. Next, is the cost a product cost or a period cost? This concept is very important because the accounting treatment for both costs are different. Product costs are incurred that help convert raw materials into finished goods. In the video on FRS2 inventories, do you remember I mentioned that the cost of inventories include both the cost of purchase and cost of conversion? These product costs, therefore, need to be recognized as part of inventory. Period costs, on the other hand, are costs incurred for non-production purposes. It is recognized as an expense for the period when incurred. As you can see, it is important to classify a cost as a product cost or period cost correctly. Otherwise, the inventories and profit figure is misstated. So, how do we differentiate between the two? The general rule of thumb is, if a cost is incurred in the factory, it is a product cost. If it is incurred in the office, retail shop, or any places outside the factory, it is a period cost. Let's go through some examples to learn how to differentiate between a product cost and a period cost. Remember, any cost incurred in the factory or any cost related to the production process is a product cost. Office staff salary is a period cost because it is an expense incurred in the office. Office staffs are also not involved in the production process. Production manager's salary is a product cost, since the production manager will facilitate the production process. What about depreciation of production machine? This machine is involved in the production process, so any cost incurred on it is a product cost. Office equipment are used in the office, and they are not involved in the production process, so any cost incurred on office equipment, like depreciation, is a period cost. As mentioned earlier on, any cost incurred on a production machine is a product cost, so the maintenance of the machine is also a product cost. Freight charges or delivery charges on raw material is a product cost. This cost is incurred to transport the raw material to the factory so that the production process can start. Strictly speaking, it is part of the production process. Office supply is a period cost, since it is a cost incurred in the office. Salesman's salary, are salesmen involved in the production process? No, so their salary is a period cost. What about freight charge on finished goods? When the company completes the manufacturing process and wants to sell its finished goods, it will incur freight charge if delivery service is required to transport the goods to the customer. This is not part of the production process, as the production process was completed before the goods could be transported to the customer. Instead, this is a selling and distribution expense, in other words, a period cost. Lastly, product design fee is a product cost. Product design fee is a cost incurred in the factory to help the company develop new products. It is similar to research and development. Therefore, this is a product cost. What if a cost is incurred for both production and non-production purposes? How do we classify it? For example, utilities, rent, insurance, or maintenance incurred on the building as a whole. Here, the company ought to find a reasonable basis to apportion the cost. One good basis to apportion the cost is based on floor area. So the company could estimate the floor area of the factory and the floor area of the office, retail shop, or parts of the building not used as a factory, and apportion the cost accordingly. So let's say 25% of the building's floor area is used as a factory. That means 25% of the common cost incurred on the building as a whole is recognized as a product cost. The remaining 75% of the common cost is recognized as a period cost. Product cost can be further classified between a direct cost and an indirect cost. Direct cost can be traced to each unit of production. Indirect cost cannot be traced to each unit of production. So if it cannot be traced to each unit produced, we will allocate the cost to each unit instead. Direct costs will include direct materials and direct labor. Indirect costs include indirect material, indirect labor, and other product costs. Let me illustrate how this works. Assume the company is producing noodles, and one batch of noodle requires 1 kg of flour, 310 milliliters of water, a few drops of oil, and a pinch of salt. In addition to these ingredients, each worker is assigned to help produce 10 batches each day. The production manager will supervise 10 of these workers. The company uses a noodle making machine to automate some of the processes. Each of these are product costs, since they are incurred to produce the noodles. But which is direct and which is indirect? The difference is whether the cost can be traced to the unit of production. The flour is a direct cost, specifically a direct material cost, since flour is used as a raw material in the production process. We can trace the amount of flour used to each batch produced, and we know 1 kg is needed for each batch. The same goes to the water needed to knead the flour. It is stated that 310 milliliters is needed for each batch. What about the oil? It is stated that just a few drops of oil is enough. Will you want to trace how many milliliters of oil you use in each batch? It is not worth tracing them given the negligible amount. Therefore, this is an indirect cost, indirect material specifically. Instead of tracing the amount of oil used in each batch, the company will check how many batches of noodles it makes before a bottle of oil is fully consumed, and will allocate the cost of one bottle of oil to the total batches of noodles produced using that one bottle of oil. The same goes to the salt. Since it is just a pinch of salt, it is not worth measuring how many grams of salt is used in each batch. The company will allocate the cost, meaning check how many batches of noodle is produced using one packet of salt and allocate the cost of one packet of salt to the number of batches produced. Next, we noted that one worker will produce 10 batches of noodles each day. The worker's salary is a direct cost, since we can trace his salary to the 10 batches of noodles he produced every day. Specifically, this is a direct labor cost. Labor cost simply means the worker's salary or wages. The production manager will supervise 10 workers. He is not directly involved in the production process. Rather, he helps facilitate the production process. Hence, his work cannot be traced to each batch produced. His salary is an indirect labor cost. Lastly, we noted that a noodle making machine is used in the production process. The noodle making machine will incur some costs like utilities, depreciation, and maintenance. These costs are regarded as an indirect cost. It is not feasible to trace how much power is consumed just to make one batch, so these costs will be allocated to the batches produced instead.